So, I promised a dear friend of mine that I'd watch this anime because I had not watched any of their recommendations yet. Recommending someone an anime to watch feels like an art form. If there's a movie or show that you enjoy, you can just say, hey, I enjoyed this and I recommend watching this to one of your friends or family. With anime, to recommend a show, it feels like you need to know the other person on a deeper level, on a personal level. In my experience, one does not just recommend anime lightly to one another, but there's a bit of a verbal vetting process and a canvas of your prior anime history to make sure the show is a good fit for you. We're like human Netflix queues. I think we do this because we want others to experience anime as we did on our first watch of the series. As good as that is, I think it's always important to have different reactions and perspectives. Orange is an anime targeted towards the young adult crowd. It's a slice of life anime that follows a group of friends, specifically two main characters, Naho and Kakeru, who are romantically involved over the duration of the show. The twist is that Naho has received letters from herself in the future asking her to save Kakeru. Kakeru in the near future commits suicide for a variety of reasons. Naho from the future regrets not being able to do more to save him, thus she tasks her past self to make sure his future is secure. It's an anime with an extremely good presence. It kind of reminds me of the stuff that Key and Kyoto Animation does, but it unfortunately comes off a little flat, a little frustrating, and unfortunately a little boring. There are quite a few things I could discuss here: the awkward dialogue between Naho and Kakeru, the low-key forced love story, the pacing, but I'll point out what I think are the major flaws. The first thing that we have to discuss is time travel. I said it in my Tenet video, I'll say it again. The aspect of time travel is convoluted and complex. It's hard to do time travel well without a series of glaring plot holes. The entire basis of this anime is that Naho from the future is able to send letters to her past self. The concept of how these letters get to her is interesting at first. I can say I was genuinely curious to know, just what in the world was going on. The final episodes explain the concept. Apparently Naho and her friends, because they're in on it too, write letters and dump said letters into the Bermuda Triangle, which is also doubling as a black hole. Now, allow me to back up a bit. This is a slice of life anime. You aren't going to get the details explaining how the entirety of the process works because it's already pretty outlandish, right? I won't criticize the anime about how the physical process works because it doesn't in reality. Setting up the logistics of being able to not only get to but drop letters within God knows where of the Bermuda Triangle in a manner in which not only do the letters get to a parallel universe undamaged but end up on the correct galaxy, solar system, planet, country, city, and then added for good measure in a post office in Japan so the letters can actually be delivered in each character's respective mailboxes. Yeah, that's just not happening. So I understand that this is some out of the box thinking, so I don't fault the anime for just glossing over this theme, but I have to criticize how the characters react to it. Besides the aspect of Kakeru dying, there's not much question to the obviously supernatural aspect of the show. Being able to interact with the past to change the future. Everyone just kind of runs with it, and which is annoying in all acts of the anime, to be honest with you. The time travel aspects leads directly into my next issue, which is friendship solving everything. If you just have loving friends, everything will always work out, right? Right? Orange is never subtle on this lesson, regardless if it's correct or not based on the situation. Kakeru is a depressed teenager who has no relationship with his father because he was abusive, and his mother has recently committed suicide. I have to tread carefully on the topic of suicide because it's a sensitive subject that has affected many, but I don't think Orange handles it appropriately. First and foremost, Kakeru needs professional help that his high school friends are unqualified to provide. The end of this anime concludes with his friends basically attempting to stop the events of the night where Kakeru would commit suicide. He doesn't go through with it because of the events that have taken place up until that night. He has a tight group of friends that love him, and he finds the willingness to live because of them. This aspect highlights the importance of good relationships in your life regardless of your mental state. This is great, but to me does not do enough when we're handling topics of suicide and mental health. Friendship does not solve everything. Orange wants you to respect the complexities of depression without actually fleshing it out. The true main character is Naho, which means we don't get as much of a focus as we need to on Kakeru, and often his actions and motivations feel too cold and robotic. He comes off as more of an asshole than he is a depressed teen struggling with thoughts of suicide. This makes you frustrated as he is not communicating his thoughts and feelings as he pursues a relationship with Naho. It's not the typical, oh, just please kiss already kind of romance, but it's this, why did you just look at Naho, stick your hand out, say nothing, and then be upset and completely shut down when she didn't take your hand? I don't think most human beings would be able to understand what you are attempting to communicate. I'm trying to be understanding as I know he's going through a lot, but at the exact same time, it's never fleshed out enough for him to be understanding. Friendship doesn't solve Kakeru's mother committing suicide. Her death shows that she likely had a struggle with mental health as well, but her motivation for the suicide is ultimately selfish. Kakeru blames himself because of the mean message he sent to her before she died, but honestly, her last message to him shows his mother's selfish motivation of wanting to be out of the way so he could live his life. Your son didn't want you dead, he just wanted to know why you were being so suffocating. But none of this matters because Kakeru never deals with this anyway. He never has any reconciliation for it that's, to me at least, meaningful. Naho and her friends in the future never really deal with their regret appropriately either. It's evident that friendship doesn't solve their problems in the future as they have regrets 10 years down the line and write the letters in the first place. I believe there is something cathartic about writing letters to your past self and your dead friend discussing your regrets, but if you've held on to them for 10 years and feel so strongly about it that you are willing to change the past and the future of a different self, it doesn't really feel like you and your friend staring off into the sunset is the end. Sounds like there's much more emotional trauma to work through. And what about the metaphorical suicide of Suwa? Suwa gets a letter from himself detailing a life with Naho and a beautiful baby. Part of the plan to save Kakeru is that he and Naho have to be together, which means the instance in which Naho and Suwa fell in love never occurs. Suwa's sacrifice is not his physical life, but a future with Naho and his own child. Literally, his own child will never be born because of how he chose to save Kakeru. I've seen many opinions on this anime about people seeing Suwa as the GOAT, or just wishing Kakeru would have died regardless so that he and Naho could be together in the end. And that sounds messed up on the surface, but after 13 episodes, I can't blame them for having those opinions. Do Naho and Kakeru have to be together for him to not commit suicide, or do his friends just need to be really supportive? The anime tells you the former, but also tells you for 13 episodes straight the latter as well. So which is it? Love or friendship solves everything? Is there only one path or multiple paths? See, these are the type of problems that occur when you throw in the complex aspect of time travel into your show. I don't understand Kakeru outside of the first few episodes. Perhaps this is the point. As a person who has struggled with depression, I wanted to, but I can't relate to him. I can understand how his mother pushed him over the edge mentally, but I have a hard time understanding that the friends around him should feel an insane amount of regret presently or even in the future based on his actions. We should love and support our friends as much as possible, but I don't necessarily believe in dedicating all of our time, resources, and potentially futures to friends in order to save their lives. Don't get me wrong, if I have a friend that is struggling at all, I want to be there to support them, but at the exact same time, I can't control them, and they can't control me either, directly or indirectly. Eventually, that person has to make a choice, whether they want to live or die. It's a sobering reality, but it's reality. The anime actually does this well for a moment at the end when Kakeru decides not to kill himself. He makes his choice and does so correctly, but I do have to ask about the cost to get there. Were his friends really doing things so differently in the reality where he died that pushed him over the edge? It seems unlikely with the type of events his friends were changing in the first place. It's not like he was being bullied by them or that he wasn't friends with them. He just wasn't receiving any support from them because they were ignorant to his struggles because he kept it hidden. That's not to shame him either for that, but it's important to realize support for this kind of thing is a two-way street. You do need people to be supportive, but you also have to want that simultaneously. I think the anime does a few things well on the surface level. You should be mindful of your friends because you may never know what they're going through. These situations do require a lot of support, so if you have a friend dealing with any of the themes that were mentioned here in the show, or they're just having a rough time, you may need to take a position of being present more than you normally would. But everything else is just glossed over with the run-of-the-mill love story, and friendship is basically magic. I think this anime is a disservice to anyone who's struggling with depression and or thoughts of suicide. This anime doesn't bring anything new to the table, which is tragic as it came out in 2016. I recommend you watch A Silent Voice instead. You'll have a better emotional response and it'll take up less of your time. It's watchable. Maybe you'll get more out of it than I did, but I'm disappointed regarding the handling of such serious topics, especially with the type of mental health crisis that we have in the United States. 5 out of 10. I'm not going to rewatch it. I was a little bored. But otherwise, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thanks for joining me on Black Man's Log.